We now look at one of the more complicated, unique areas of film editing and how it's changed over the years so that you get a better sense of how to write about it, what to look for. We've just been going with the classic cuts, the way things progress in a more natural setting, temporal changes with time to speed things up. But now we get into more detail with more examples on what to look for and how to write about it. The process of taking images, an editor has been given or has to select, arrange, assemble, all based on the visuals, sound, and special effects given to that person to tell a story. So, of course, the basic building block of a film is each shot, and that is taken at different angles and different situations, and each shot can be unique to itself or done over and over again as needed. Cutting and splicing. Before digital came along, you had to physically cut the film, so they would take the original, make duplicates of the original to save the original in its form, and then go through the process of picking out each shot, cutting the shot they wanted, and gluing it to the next shot to make the film complete. Then it was changed at the end and processed to make it a whole unit to be shown in a movie theater. So we interpret shots in relation to the surroundings, how the shots change in what order, things like that. So editing is very complicated and a great challenge, but can also be very enjoyable and a great occupation. Decides what shots to use and how to use them is what a film editor does. It's all reviewed, though, and changes are made based on what the director recommends. So in the pre-production stage, the editor may suggest composition of shots, how to block it out, what kind of lighting to be used to the cinematographer that will aid in the editing. Creative power is put at the service of the director. If an editor goes too far, the director will pull it back. And what you need to know is that out of all the films shot for an entire film, every 20 minutes shot relates to 1 minute they actually use in the movie. So the editor's responsibilities are spatial relationships between shots to make the movie flow and make sense, temporal relationships between shots, and we'll go over that more in a moment, and the overall rhythm of a film is very important to keeping the audience interested. So spatial and temporal relationships. The first term to remember is the Kuleshov effect, the power of perceiving spatial relationships even when given minimal visual information. In other words, we accept what we're seeing, and the power of that is called the Kuleshov effect, in that we don't see something happen, we just figure it did happen, and that is true. Another spatial temporal use is called a flashback, where someone starts to think of something, they do a transition, and they go back in time to show you what's happened earlier, maybe even before the actual film story started. So flashback will fill in details, help solve mysteries, give some element that is essential for the audience to realize at that moment through a flashback or going back in time. Flash forward will actually show you something, and you have to determine if that's in the future and what that means to present day. So a flash forward will maybe interpret what present action caused it to happen, and it'll show images about the plot's future. You might not understand it first, and then go back, and it'll eventually the holes will fill as you experience it, so it can create mystery as well with that in mind. Now, ellipsis. This is where they omit things between one moment and another moment. The idea that we don't want to see someone walk out to the house, of their house, climb in a car, back out of the driveway, go to where they want to, and then get out of the car, that type of thing. So what ellipsis would mean, they may go out of the door and boom, the next moment they're where they want to be. So that's the ellipsis moments where they're economizing the plot, keeping the things moving, and you accept it as an audience because it cuts out the boring elements to real life, skips over things you don't need to know, or will help create the mystery they want by skipping through them. Rhythm of the film. It's determined by the duration of a shot. The editor will control the rhythm by varying each duration of a shot. You could either make them very quick in order or longer shots to create the mood. So the mood and rhythm of a moment can vary between quick shots, longer shots, and it's the editor's choice. And it's regarding the rhythm of the scenes, creates larger patterns of shot duration, and these can be built up or broken down for dramatic emphasis and impact in the movie. So content curve. Content curve is the point at which we have absorbed everything and that we need to know in a particular shot, and we're ready to see the next shot. So some can happen very quickly. Others need to create suspense, so they draw out the shot, so the content curve becomes longer, and then we understand what's going on. Now, in 1925, early in film's history, Russia became part of the Soviet Union and became a communist country. Because of that, Battleship Potemkin had to follow the standards of the government in power. Director Sergei Eisenstein is a Soviet Union film, so it had to conform to the communist philosophy and goals of the state and change the historical perspective to meet those goals, which was to show the evils of the Tsar before communism took over and the Soviet Union was born. So if you look at the power of the shots, this involves the Odessa staircase, where a group of citizens have gathered, and to make the emphasis of the evil of the Tsar, they create very uniformed and powerful shots lined up in lines to show the soldiers being very authoritative and being very negative on the Tsar. And they shoot people, including a young mother. And in this one, they're taking the shot and using the body position of the actor to show the quality of the moment. The circle of the mouth, the eyes are closed, the nose is pointed up, showing the terrible moment of being shot. She falls down, and in that downward movement, we see a carriage with a baby in it. And when she finally dies, she pushes the wheel. So again, the circular image of the wheel becomes important, symbolic in the editing. And then reaction to the horror of the moment from another woman. And there's the baby in the carriage going down the staircase, and we see other bodies there, and shadows all become part of the editing process to show the horror of the situation. Another reaction shot from a citizen that's hiding from the gunshots. The carriage continues to go down. You see more bodies of people killed by the troops. And all of that is called continuity. It starts out at one moment, it flows through it, and the continuity is logical. It has a smoothness to it. There's a sequence that's followed. It continues in a more realistic temporal time, place, and spatial orientation, so the viewers capture everything from that moment and watch it flow as it would have happened realistically. So continuity editing is what you experience every time you go to a film in most situations. It's got to have some continuity for you to follow the story, but most of it is done in order. It makes sense all the way through. Screen direction is consistent from shot to shot. There's graphic, spatial, and temporal relationships that are maintained from shot to shot. It doesn't look sporadic or out of place. Discontinuity editing would be breaking the rules to create the tension of a moment or situation that calls for discontinuity. So they're not creating transitions that are smooth or continuous or coherent. They're throwing things at you for a purpose when they go into this type of editing. There may be mismatches in location. You see one image, but then it looks like you see something else from a different location, and it becomes confusing. And that's what they want. They want to change the direction. They want to change the speed of movement. The lighting will be inconsistent, all to create a mise en scène that makes sense to the director, but may keep the audience engaged as to what the heck's going on. Camera angles will change and become more extreme, and even color will change based on the needs of this discontinuity editing. Master scene technique. The master scene technique is based on the idea of coverage, meaning the scene is photographed with a variety of individual shots, running from a long shot to a close-up to different duration of shots. So the master scene technique will add meaning through these types of approaches. Now, a master shot is a single shot that lasts for a very long time to show you the character and the actions that are taking place in that one continuous shot. And if you want to see examples of this, you'd want to watch Spectre, the latest James Bond movie. The Daniel Craig walks continuously through for about 5 minutes and takes you through different areas, including a street, an apartment, or a hotel, whichever way you want to interpret it, going onto a roof. It never stops. That way you get multiple locations, see a different situation, different relationships as it moves through. The 180-degree rule. If you set up a camera, it should not break this rule. The 100-degree rule is an axis of action, an imaginary line drawn between the main objects of the shots or the characters or the area being performed so that you maintain continuity. And it should preserve a certain directional concept that you accept. The camera must always stay on the same side of that line. If you cross it, things will look out of order. So the axis of action shifts as characters move within the frame and as the camera moves, but they maintain the 180-degree rule unless they use discontinuity. So here's an example. If you see a shot where a man is on the left side of the screen and another one is on the right, when they reverse the shot to look at this person, it should stay consistent. This person's still on the left side, and this person's still on the right side. If we broke this 180-degree rule and put the camera over here, this is where this person would look, which would look like the same side as that person. So that's why they do it, so you don't go, wait a minute, are they flipping spots or what? And that is a way to maintain consistency. Continuity with a match cut. So figuratively, a man burning a match. This is from Lawrence of Arabia. The character would stay in there and you'd have to match the cut when you change from shot A to shot B so that this stays in the same perspective, same level, and has the same impact or based on eye contact. So they call this an eye-line match. The location matches the previous shot. There's not a change in location. The image is the same and the two go together. Point of view shot, where you get it from the perspective of a character or a group of people. The idea that, we've talked about this before earlier, that you're seeing it from the point of a key character moving. So if a person's been drugged, it looks hazier from their point of view. They'd want the point of view shot to look that way. A jump cut is an instantaneous reverse or advance in action that is jarring and will disrupt it and cause a certain different change in attitude. Parallel editing is where two or more actions are happening at the same time in different places. So if you watch the baptism scene from The Godfather, the main location is where Michael Corleone is becoming a godfather for the first time in a Catholic church. But they change locations to show other people doing other acts, all violent, while the baptism is occurring. So there's up to 5 or 6 different locations used in that parallel edit that you have to interpret, but the two appear to be happening at the same time in different places. Now, if you're not sure if it's parallel editing, use the term cross-cutting, cutting together 2 or more lines of action that occur simultaneously at different locations. So if you're not sure of the location, you can call it cross-cutting, and that way you're a little bit safer than calling it a parallel edit. Intercutting is editing 2 or more actions that take place in different locations or at different times, but give the impression of it in one scene. So a person could be talking about a bank robbery, and then as they talk about the bank robbery, you actually see it happening even though you know it already happened. So that's how you interpret these different terms and meanings of each term, which can be a little distracting or confusing. So If you're not sure that it's happening at the same time, go with the other two terms to stay out of trouble, or consult with me on what I think, and then when you get that solved, you'll feel more comfortable in what you're doing, because you're just learning this and haven't maybe even witnessed it or realized you've witnessed it. Okay, so we've gotten continuity and discontinuity editing. Now I'm giving you one that's not in the book to add a little spice to the editing experience. There is what they call a collision principle or dynamic editing that's used in many films. The collision principle violates all the rules just like discontinuity, but becomes more jarring and more confusing as multiple angles are changed quickly, and even the focus might be softer in one than the other. So this lacks continuity or flow. It's disjointed with many jump cuts that are very similar, and they're mixed into a shot variety in the moment. So if you want to see this, watch the scene from Psycho. Jarring edits break the rule that you've been learning and experiencing with multiple angles and images, and most are handheld or mixes a quick camera moment with a soft focus, or actually physically shakes the camera to add intensity. So this is a hard one to kind of put in your mind unless you see it, which is why you should probably watch some scenes. So watch Bonnie and Clyde from 1967. It begins with some parallel edits as Bonnie and Clyde go to meet a person at a certain location until they reach that location. But then, as violence erupts, you see many sounds, angles, jump cuts colliding. There'll be a mixture of film speed, where at first it seems to be slow motion, then regular motion, and a very extreme method to shock the audience. So be sure and watch that scene that's in News on D2L. And the other example would be the Psycho shower scene. I even put the URL location for the YouTube version. There's probably 2 or 3 on YouTube. So this one, it shows Hitchcock, Psycho 1960s Alfred Hitchcock scene where is very famous. It's called the shower scene. Janet Leigh plays a criminal, really. She's taken money that doesn't belong to her, and she's running away, but then she stops at a hotel, and it ends up with a shower scene moment. They wanted to create a graphic impact to it, so if you watch this scene, pause it at 103 and think through how Hitchcock got that shot. It's of a shower head, water coming right at the lens of the camera. How did he take that shot? How did it work? Then notice the impact of sound with the edits. You've got different types of sound. Sound of the shower, sound of the extreme heavy music when violence starts, mixed with dialogue sound of Janet Leigh yelling, screaming, and terror as it goes on. So it's shocking enough that the censors actually miss nudity at about the 227 mark of this scene. And the symbolism of the blood going down the drain and dissolving to her eye shows the meaning of death at that moment in that shower scene. So all of these are things for you to think through the editing process, show you how complex it could be, and how interesting editing can be as it changes through technology in the future. So we've gone through editing. Next time is sound. The two will relate better once you read chapter 9, but sound is also unique, and we'll do that one next time.